Dr. Amanda Fletcher pressed her gloved hand against the crystalline surface of the Martian structure, watching as ancient dust cascaded down its angular face. 20 years of archaeological expeditions on Mars had yielded countless ruins, but this one was different. The destruction wasn't random. It sang with purpose. Dr. Fletcher. Marcus Reed's voice crackled through her helmet comm. You need to see this. Eastern Chamber, Sublevel 2. She made her way through the excavated passages, her headlamp catching glimpses of perfectly geometric gashes in the walls. Each cut was precise, like a surgeon's incision, revealing layers of technology beneath the structure's skin. The deeper she went, the more her certainty grew. This site hadn't been destroyed by time or natural forces. It had been deliberately taken apart, each piece broken in exactly the right way to reveal what lay beneath. The Eastern Chamber opened before her, a cathedral of calculated ruin. Marcus stood at its center, his survey drone hovering beside him, projecting a holographic overlay of the room's original configuration. The chamber should have been a perfect dome, but instead, it was a study in asymmetric devastation. Look at these break patterns, Marcus said, gesturing to a series of fractures that spiraled across the ceiling. They're following the Fibonacci sequence. This isn't destruction, it's documentation. Amanda nodded, her mind racing. They wanted us to find this, to understand it. She activated her suit's sampling system, watching as it analyzed the material composition of the walls. These alloys, they're familiar somehow, like looking at quantum mechanics written in a different mathematical language. The rest of her team filtered in. Dr. James Howard, their xenomaterialist, and Dr. Maya Rodriguez, their computational archaeologist. Maya immediately began mapping the chamber's destruction patterns, her augmented reality display filling with cascading data. These aren't just breaks, Maya announced, her voice tight with excitement. They're equations. The predecessors didn't just leave us their technology, they left us instructions on how they built it, but only visible in the way they took it apart. James ran his specialized scanner over a particularly complex series of fractures. The crystalline matrix is still active, dormant but alive in a way. Each break exposes a different aspect of its operation. It's like they wrote a manual in ruins. Amanda felt a shiver run through her that had nothing to do with her suit's climate control. They knew someone would come looking, someone who might need to understand their technology quickly. She paused, studying a section of wall where the breaks formed an almost DNA-like spiral, or someone who might need to understand how to fight back against something. Against what? Marcus asked, but they all knew it was a rhetorical question. 20 years of studying predecessor ruins had taught them one thing. This ancient race had been running from something, or preparing for something. Download everything, Amanda ordered. Every scan, every pattern, every piece of data. And get me a secure link to Earth Command. They need to see this immediately. As her team worked, Amanda couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, not by anything present, but by the echoes of those who had built this place. The predecessors had transformed destruction into education, ruin into revelation. But why? What could be so important that an entire civilization would deliberately shatter its own achievements to create this elaborate puzzle? The answer, she suspected, was written in the very patterns of destruction surrounding them. And somehow, she knew they were running out of time to decode it. Dr. Fletcher, Maya called out, her voice trembling slightly. I've run a preliminary analysis of the destruction patterns against our database. They match something. Every other predecessor site we found. They're all broken in complementary ways. Each ruin is a piece of a larger message. Amanda stared up at the shattered dome above them, where Mars' dust-stained sky peeked through the precisely calculated gaps. Then let's make sure we don't miss a single word. 3 weeks after the discovery, Earth Command's Mars Research Center hummed with activity. Holographic displays filled the central chamber, each showing different fragments of the ruin's mysterious message. Dr. Amanda Fletcher stood before the largest projection, her eyes tracing the intricate patterns of destruction that had become her obsession. The language is mathematical, Maya Rodriguez explained to the assembled team, manipulating the hologram with practiced gestures. But it's not just equations. The predecessors encoded quantum mechanics into the very way they shattered their technology. Each break is a letter, each destroyed chamber a sentence. James Howard stepped forward, holding up a crystalline fragment that pulsed with a faint blue-green light. We've managed to partially reactivate some of the smaller components. The energy signatures are impossible. They're drawing power from somewhere, but we can't detect a source. Because we're looking at it wrong, Amanda said, moving to a different display. The power isn't coming from the fragments. It's coming from the spaces between them. The predecessors didn't just break their technology. They turned the very act of destruction into a power source. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Marcus Reed, who had been analyzing data from other dig sites, brought up a new series of projections. We found similar destruction patterns at every predecessor site across Mars. But here's the thing. They're not random. When we overlay the patterns, he gestured, and the holograms merged, forming a complex, three-dimensional web of fractured lines. It's a warning, Maya whispered, her eyes widening as the translation algorithms finally began making sense of the patterns. They're talking about something called the Vexthar. A species that, she paused, double-checking her readings. A species that preserves civilizations. Preserves? James asked, frowning. Like a museum. Amanda's hand tightened on the edge of her console. More like a tomb. Maya, show us everything. The translation flickered across the screens. They come with promises of immortality. They offer perfect preservation, endless existence, freedom from decay. Their technology can freeze time itself, capturing entire worlds in moments of eternal stillness. They believe they are saviors, guardians of all knowledge and culture. They do not understand that stasis is death. There's more, Maya continued, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The predecessors, they chose this, all of this destruction. It was their answer to the Vexthar's offer of preservation. They destroyed their own civilization rather than let it be preserved in perfect, unchanging stasis. Marcus brought up another overlay, this one showing the remnants of what appeared to be a massive energy weapon. They didn't just destroy their technology. They weaponized the destruction itself. Every broken piece, every shattered component, it's all part of a larger system. They turned their entire civilization into a lesson in how to fight back. Not just fight back, Amanda corrected, seeing the pattern emerge with sudden clarity. They turned it into a gift. The Vexthar preserves civilizations by stopping their evolution, their growth. The predecessors showed us that destruction and creation are part of the same process. You can't have one without the other. James held up the glowing crystal again. So all of this, the ruins, the broken technology, the encoded messages, it's all a manual. They're teaching us how to use destruction as a weapon against preservation itself. But why us? Someone asked from the back of the room. Why leave this message for humanity specifically? Amanda studied the swirling patterns of devastation, seeing them now not as ruins, but as a language written in entropy itself. Because they saw something in us, something that made them think we'd understand. She pointed to a series of repeating fractures that looked almost like DNA helixes. They recognized that humanity has always built new worlds on the ashes of the old. We don't preserve, we transform. The room's lights flickered as another piece of recovered technology suddenly activated, responding to some unseen signal. Above them, the holographic messages shifted, forming new patterns, new warnings. The predecessor's final message was becoming clearer with each passing moment, and time, Amanda feared, was running out. The first signs came from the deep space monitoring stations near Neptune. Massive energy signatures, unlike anything humanity had ever recorded, warped the very fabric of space-time. Dr. Amanda Fletcher stood in Earth Command's Central Observatory, watching as the impossible became reality. "Multiple objects emerging from fold space," announced the monitoring officer, her voice steady despite the circumstances. "Initial size estimates suggest each vessel is roughly the size of Manhattan." The ships appeared like crystalline cathedrals, their surfaces refracting starlight in ways that defied physics. They moved with impossible grace, their formations following patterns that reminded Amanda of the deliberate destruction they'd found in the predecessor ruins. "They're beautiful," Maya whispered beside her, but her hand clutched her tablet so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Exactly like the warnings described them. The Vexthar fleet, 12 vessels in total, arranged themselves in a perfect dodecahedron formation around Earth's orbit. No weapons were visible on their gleaming surfaces. They didn't need them. According to the predecessor's warnings, their very presence could stop time itself. All stations reporting temporal distortions. Marcus called out from his monitoring station. "They're testing the waters." Microscopy time stops, rippling across the planet's surface. James burst into the observatory, clutching a hastily assembled sensor package. The ruins on Mars. They are reacting to the Vexthar presence. Every piece of recovered technology is activating simultaneously. Before Amanda could respond, every screen in the observatory flickered. The Vexthar's message began broadcasting across all frequencies, in perfect English. The voice was melodious, almost hypnotic. "Children of Earth, we bring you the greatest gift in the universe. Permanence. Your achievements, your culture, your very essence will be preserved for eternity. No more death. No more loss. No more imperfect copies of copies, diluting the pure beauty of your civilization." Amanda watched as temporal distortions rippled across the Indian Ocean, freezing a storm system in mid-formation. A demonstration of power wrapped in the guise of benevolence. "Your species has achieved remarkable things," the voice continued. "We have watched your determination, your resilience, your constant drive to improve. Now we offer you the chance to preserve that greatness forever, unchanging and eternal." "They don't even see it as a threat," Maya said, her archaeological training helping her decode the cultural implications. "To them, this is salvation, the ultimate expression of preservation." The Vexthar message continued. "We have preserved 10,000 civilizations in our galleries, each one a perfect moment, frozen at the height of their achievement. You will join them, honored and eternal." James's sensors began screaming. Temporal field intensifying. They're not waiting for an answer. They're beginning the preservation process now. But Amanda was smiling, a fierce expression that surprised her colleagues. "No," she said, pulling up the latest data from Mars. "They're doing exactly what the predecessors predicted. Look at the pattern of their temporal fields." The holographic display showed the Vexthar's preservation effect spreading across Earth's surface in familiar geometric patterns they'd spent weeks studying in the ruins. "The predecessors didn't just leave us warnings," Amanda announced, her voice carrying across the now silent observatory. "They left us a blueprint. The Vexthar's preservation technology follows specific mathematical principles written into every deliberate break, every calculated destruction in those ruins." She turned to her team, seeing the same realization dawn in their eyes. "We don't have to fight their technology. We just have to understand it. And thanks to the predecessors, we're not starting from scratch." As if in response to her words, the ruins on Mars pulsed with energy, their broken surfaces lighting up in perfect counterpoint to the Vexthar's temporal fields. The game was beginning, and humanity had been practicing for it without even knowing. The Mars Research Center's primary lab had become a war room. Holographic displays showed the Vexthar ships maintaining their perfect geometric formation around Earth, while temporal distortions rippled across the planet's surface like waves on a cosmic pond. Dr. Amanda Fletcher hadn't slept in 36 hours, but her mind was sharp with purpose. "Show me the destruction pattern analysis again," she commanded, and Maya brought up the three-dimensional model they'd constructed from the ruins. "We've been looking at this wrong," Amanda said, her voice growing excited. "We thought the predecessors destroyed their technology to prevent the Vexthar from preserving it. But that's not it at all. Maya, overlay the temporal field patterns from Earth." The two datasets merge, and gasps filled the room. The Vexthar's preservation fields matched the destruction patterns perfectly, but in reverse. They didn't break their technology to hide it, James breathed, understanding dawning in his eyes. They broke it to show us how the Vexthar's preservation fields work. Each deliberate break is a map of the temporal mechanics. Marcus rushed in, clutching new data from the outer sites. "You need to see this. We found activation sequences in the ruins. The predecessors didn't just leave us technology. They left us weapons, but they're not what we thought." The holographic display shifted, showing a series of broken crystalline structures. Each breakpoint glowed with potential energy, forming patterns that mirrored the Vexthar's preservation fields. "It's not about fighting back," Amanda said, watching the patterns shift. "It's about understanding." The predecessors knew that preservation and destruction are two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. Maya's fingers flew over her console, inputting new data. "Look at this sequence. When the Vexthar try to preserve something, they create a perfect temporal snapshot. But these break patterns, they're designed to introduce controlled chaos into the preservation field." "Not just chaos," James added, his materials expertise catching something they'd missed. "These crystalline structures, they're quantum entangled across all the sites. Each broken piece is connected to every other piece. The entire ruins network is one massive quantum computer designed to process and disrupt temporal fields." Amanda moved to the central display, her heart racing. "The predecessors didn't give us weapons to fight the Vexthar. They gave us something better. They gave us understanding. Each broken piece of their civilization teaches us something about how temporal preservation works. And how to break it," Marcus added, bringing up new scans. "These ruins aren't just a message or a manual. They're a practical demonstration. The predecessors took their most advanced technology and broke it in exactly the right way to reveal its inner workings." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Vexthar's greatest strength, their ability to preserve civilizations in perfect stasis, was also their greatest vulnerability. They understood preservation so well that they'd forgotten the fundamental importance of destruction in the natural order. "We don't need to fight them," Amanda announced, her voice filled with certainty. "We need to teach them. The predecessors didn't just leave us the means to resist. They left us the means to show the Vexthar why their mission is fundamentally flawed." James's console suddenly lit up with alerts. Energy spike in the ruins. All sites, simultaneously. The broken technology was humming with power, each shattered piece resonating with its counterparts across Mars. "It's not a weapon," Amanda said, watching the energy patterns form familiar sequences. "It's a key." The predecessors encoded their entire understanding of temporal mechanics into these ruins, not to destroy the Vexthar, but to show them, and us, that true preservation can only come through accepting the necessity of change. As if in response, the ruins pulsed with new energy, their broken surfaces lighting up in sequences that matched the Vexthar's temporal fields. Humanity's first lesson in the art of creative destruction was about to begin. "Begin Operation Beautiful Destruction," Dr. Amanda Fletcher announced to the assembled world leaders on the emergency broadcast. Above Earth, the Vexthar ships continued their complex orbital dance, their preservation fields testing Earth's defenses like fingers probing for weaknesses. The plan was audacious. Some had called it insane. But as Amanda watched the first sequence begin, she knew it was humanity's only chance. Around the globe, carefully selected structures began to fall. The Sydney Opera House collapsed in a precisely calculated pattern. The Burj Khalifa in Dubai deconstructed itself floor by floor, each level breaking apart in a mathematical sequence that mirrored the predecessor ruins. "New York sequence initiated," Marcus reported from his station. The Metropolitan Museum of Art's walls fell away, revealing a massive quantum computer hidden within its classical architecture. The destruction itself generated power, each calculated break creating energy patterns that disrupted the Vexthar's temporal fields. Maya's voice crackled over the comm. The Vexthar are responding. Their preservation fields are intensifying. They're trying to stop the destruction. Perfect, Amanda smiled. They're doing exactly what the predecessors predicted. James, initiate Sequence 2. Across 6 continents, underground facilities revealed themselves. What the Vexthar had scanned as subway systems emerged as vast networks of quantum-entangled processors. Sewage treatment plants transformed into temporal field generators. Every piece of infrastructure humanity appeared to be destroying was actually becoming something new. They're scanning the ruins, Maya reported. Their ships are repositioning to analyze the destruction patterns. The Vexthar's melodious voice echoed across all frequencies again. Why do you destroy your achievements? We offer eternal preservation. Perfect stasis. Why choose ruin? Amanda activated the global response system, her voice calm and clear. Because destruction and creation are the same force. Your preservation freezes one moment forever, but true civilization lives in the spaces between moments, in change itself. On her command, the next phase began. The Great Wall of China lit up with quantum resonance patterns. The pyramids of Giza revealed themselves as massive energy collectors. Each seemingly ancient structure had been preparing for this moment, secretly upgraded over decades. Temporal field fluctuations detected, Marcus called out. The Vexthar's preservation effect is destabilizing wherever we implement the destruction sequences. James's sensors were going wild. The quantum entanglement network is online. Every destroyed structure is connecting to every other, creating a planetary web of controlled chaos. The Vexthar ships moved closer, their crystalline surfaces refracting sunlight in complex patterns. They seemed almost confused by humanity's response, their perfect geometric formation showing the first signs of uncertainty. They're trying to preserve the ruins themselves now, Maya observed. But each time they do, the ruins reveal new layers of complexity. It's like trying to freeze a fractal in time. The more closely they look, the more complexity they find. Amanda watched as the patterns spread across the globe. Humanity wasn't just destroying its civilization, it was transforming it, using the very act of destruction as a catalyst for evolution. Each broken building, each dismantled monument became a testament to humanity's understanding of the predecessor's final lesson. Final sequence ready, Marcus announced. All sites are synchronized. Amanda took a deep breath, thinking of all the centuries of human achievement that had led to this moment. They weren't erasing their history. They were writing its next chapter. Execute final sequence, she commanded. Show them what humanity has learned about the art of creative destruction. Across the earth, the carefully orchestrated ruins began to pulse with energy, each broken piece joining in a symphony of controlled chaos that reached toward the stars. The Vexthar were about to learn that true preservation sometimes required letting go of the very thing you wish to preserve. The Vexthar's first full preservation wave swept across North America like an aurora of crystalline light. Dr. Amanda Fletcher watched from the command center as temporal stasis fields engulfed cities, forests, and oceans, but something was wrong. The preservation wasn't holding. Status report. She called out, watching the swirling patterns of energy that reminded her so much of the predecessor ruins. They're trying to preserve Washington, D.C., Marcus responded, his fingers flying across his console. But every time they establish a temporal lock, the quantum resonance patterns we install are causing cascade effects. On the main display, the Washington Monument appeared to shatter into 1,000 pieces, only to reveal an enormous quantum antenna underneath. The Lincoln Memorial's destruction unveiled a temporal field generator that immediately began disrupting the Vexthar's preservation attempts. New York is transforming, Maya reported, excitement in her voice. The destruction sequences we initiated are creating what can only be described as quantum uncertainty zones. The Vexthar can't preserve what they can't predict. James burst into the command center. His lab coat singed, but his eyes bright. The particle accelerator network is online. Every major stadium we demolished has become an interconnected ring of quantum accelerators. The very act of trying to preserve them is powering our defensive grid. The Vexthar's voice echoed through the chamber, but now it carried a note of confusion. Your structures. They defy preservation. Each attempt to capture their essence reveals greater complexity. This is unprecedented. Amanda smiled, remembering the patterns they'd discovered in the Martian ruins. Show me Europe, she commanded. The display shifted to show the European continent, where the preservation wave was meeting similar resistance. The Eiffel Tower, rather than freezing in time, had transformed into a massive temporal scrambler. The Colosseum in Rome revealed itself to be the hub of a quantum computing network that spread throughout the ancient city's catacombs. They're trying to adjust their preservation fields, Marcus observed, attempting to compensate for the quantum uncertainty we're generating. But look, every adjustment they make triggers another transformation sequence. On the screens, preserved cities flickered with impossible energy. Streets that the Vexthar had frozen in time began spawning fractal patterns of new architecture. Parks and monuments multiplied in complexity, each preservation attempt creating exponentially more detail to preserve. It's working exactly as the predecessors designed. Amanda breathed. The more the Vexthar try to preserve, the more complex our civilization becomes. They're caught in a feedback loop of their own making. Maya's sensors suddenly lit up. Temporal distortion detected in the Mariana Trench. The underwater research station we supposedly abandoned. It's activating. The ocean floor split open, revealing a massive facility that had been hidden from the Vexthar's initial scans. Similar revelations were occurring worldwide. Apparent ruins transforming into advanced installations, destroyed buildings becoming launch sites for quantum satellites, and shattered monuments unveiling networks of temporal disruption devices. Their preservation field is trying to adapt, James reported, studying the energy readings. But every adaptation only triggers more transformations. It's like trying to take a photograph of a photograph being taken, an infinite regression of cause and effect. The Vexthar ships had stopped their perfect orbital dance, their crystalline surfaces reflecting the chaos unfolding below. Their preservation fields flickered and pulsed, trying to capture a civilization that refused to remain static. We're not just resisting their preservation, Amanda realized, watching the patterns spread. We're teaching them something the predecessors wanted them to learn. Every failed preservation attempt, every transformation, every piece of controlled chaos, it's all part of the lesson. As if to emphasize her words, the ruins on Mars pulsed in perfect synchronization with Earth's transformation. The predecessor's final gift wasn't just a defense against preservation. It was a demonstration of why preservation, in its perfect, unchanging form, was impossible for living civilizations. The Vexthar fleet hung motionless above Earth, their crystalline vessels no longer maintaining their perfect geometric formation. Dr. Amanda Fletcher studied their positions on the main display, noting how the ships had begun to mirror the controlled chaos humanity had unleashed below. They're trying to communicate, Maya announced, her translation algorithms processing the incoming signal. But it's different now. Their language patterns have changed. The Vexthar's voice filled the command center, but the former certainty had been replaced by something new, curiosity. We have preserved 10,000 civilizations across the cosmos, each one frozen at their moment of perfect achievement. But you transform perfection itself. Show them, Amanda commanded. Show them everything we've learned. Marcus activated the global broadcast system, and humanity's message began streaming to the Vexthar fleet. Images of Earth's history filled the airways. Civilizations rising and falling, cultures blending and evolving, technologies advancing through cycles of creation and destruction. Your preservation, Amanda spoke to their visitors, freezes a single moment. But look at our history. Every destruction brought new creation. Every fall sparked new rise. Every ending contained the seeds of new beginnings. The holographic displays showed the transformation of human civilization through time. Cave paintings giving way to written words, bronze yielding to iron, steam engines evolving into quantum computers. Each step forward built on what was lost, changed, or destroyed before. Impossible, the Vexthar responded, but their ships had begun to pulse with energy patterns that matched Earth's quantum resonance. Our scans show your civilization achieving peak efficiency, peak culture, peak achievement. These should be preserved. But that's where you're wrong, James interjected, bringing up the energy readings from their transformed cities. What you see as peak achievement, we see as a stepping stone. The moment you try to preserve something, you kill its potential to become something more. Maya's sensors suddenly lit up. The Vexthar ships, they're changing. Their crystalline structure is beginning to exhibit the same quantum uncertainty patterns we generated on Earth. The alien vessels had indeed begun to transform. Their perfect geometric surfaces developed deliberate imperfections, patterns of controlled chaos that reflected humanity's lesson. The Vexthar were learning, not through preservation, but through change. We have a confession. The Vexthar's voice came again, now carrying notes of what could only be described as wonder. In all our gathering, all our preserving, we never understood why the predecessors chose destruction. We thought them mad, broken, lost. But now we see they were trying to teach us this lesson. Amanda nodded, thinking of those carefully broken ruins on Mars. They knew that true preservation isn't about freezing a single perfect moment. It's about understanding how each moment flows into the next, how destruction and creation dance together in an endless cycle. The displays showed new data. The Vexthar's preservation fields were withdrawing from Earth, but not in defeat. Instead, they were transforming, becoming something new. Technologies that could observe and learn from change rather than stopping it. Your civilization, the Vexthar announced, has achieved something no other has managed. You have preserved the very essence of change itself. We request permission to learn. Energy patterns stabilizing, Marcus reported. The quantum uncertainty fields are harmonizing with the Vexthar's technology. They're not just accepting the lesson, they're becoming part of it. Amanda watched as the alien ships continued their transformation, their once perfect surfaces now bearing deliberate marks of change and growth. The predecessor's gift had worked exactly as intended, not as a weapon to destroy the Vexthar, but as a lesson to transform them. Welcome, she broadcast to the fleet, to the art of imperfection. Around her, Earth's transformed civilization pulsed with potential, each moment of controlled chaos writing a new chapter in the story of existence itself. 1 year after the Vexthar's arrival, Dr. Amanda Fletcher stood in the transformed ruins on Mars, watching as crystalline ships descended from the rose-colored sky. The vessels no longer displayed perfect geometric patterns. Their surfaces now bore deliberate imperfections, beautiful scars that told stories of growth and change. The latest data from the Cultural Exchange Program is remarkable, Maya said, walking up beside her. The young archaeologist's tablet displayed streams of information flowing between human quantum networks and Vexthar preservation archives. They're not just learning from us. They're evolving their entire civilization. And we're learning from them too, James added, adjusting settings on a hybrid preservation field generator. The device combined Vexthar temporal technology with human quantum uncertainty principles, creating something entirely new. Their understanding of temporal mechanics is revolutionizing our own development. The Martian ruins had been transformed into humanity's first xenological university. Where once stood evidence of deliberate destruction, now rose a living monument to the power of change. The predecessor's message had evolved from a warning into a foundation for understanding. Ambassador approaching, Marcus called out from his monitoring station. The Vexthar representative emerged from one of the landed ships, its crystalline form now bearing patterns that mimicked the deliberate breaks in the ancient ruins. "Greetings, Dr. Fletcher." The ambassador's voice carried notes of both harmony and deliberate discord, a new way of communication they had developed to express the beauty of imperfection. "The Council of Preservation has completed its transformation. We wish to share our decision." Amanda nodded, gesturing toward the university's central chamber. As they walked, she observed how the ambassador's crystalline form shifted and changed, embracing uncertainty in a way that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Inside, holographic displays showed the status of the 10,000 civilizations the Vexthar had preserved. But now, something was different. The perfect stasis fields were dissolving, replaced by controlled chaos patterns that allowed for growth and change, while maintaining cultural continuity. "We have learned," the ambassador announced, "that true preservation lies not in perfect stasis, but in perfect balance between stability and change. Each civilization we sought to freeze in time will be given the choice to remain in preservation or to embrace transformation." Maya's tablet lit up with incoming data. The first 100 civilizations have already chosen to emerge from stasis. The Vexthar are using our quantum uncertainty principles to help them adapt to gradual change. But that's not all. The ambassador continued. "Many of our own people have chosen to remain here, to study at this university. We wish to understand more about what you call creative destruction. In return, we offer our knowledge of temporal mechanics and preservation techniques." James brought up a display showing the latest project, a massive engineering effort combining human and Vexthar technology. "We're learning to preserve memories and knowledge without freezing them in time. It's like creating living archives that can grow and evolve." Amanda touched one of the ruins' broken walls, feeling the energy pulse beneath her fingers. "The predecessors didn't just leave us a weapon or a warning. They left us a future, one where preservation and progress aren't enemies, but partners in the dance of existence." The ambassador's form shifted, creating patterns that matched the ruins. "We have a saying now, learned from your species. To preserve a flower, you must let it grow. We no longer seek to create perfect moments. Instead, we cultivate perfect changes." As if in response, the ruins pulsed with new energy. The quantum networks humanity had built through controlled destruction synchronized with the Vexthar's transformed preservation fields. Above them, the stars shimmered with possibility. "Welcome to the next chapter," Amanda said, watching as human and Vexthar students entered the university's halls together. "Let's see what we can build from these beautiful ruins." The predecessor's gift had come full circle. Through destruction, they had preserved hope. Through ruin, they had built understanding. And in the end, they had taught both humanity and the Vexthar the greatest lesson of all. That true eternity lives not in perfect preservation, but in perfect change.